he's a very happy chappy. At least hopefully he's a happy chappy, because I'm going to be spending today going back to a how-to Indomitus video. We've not done one in a while. I've been wanting to clear up the last of these Indomitus pieces for you. So we're going to spend today looking at the Chaplain miniature from Indomitus. Now this is a beautiful, beautiful miniature, and one that I initially maybe underrated a little bit when I first looked at it. Actually, as soon as I got it down on the bench and started to work on it to paint it, I very quickly fell in love with it. And I do think that whilst the original Chaplain, the one with the long leather coat, will always have a special place in my heart, I do have a lot of love for this one as well, and I hope that's going to come through in this paint scheme that I'm going to show you. Let's get to the down cam. Okay, so we're going to get the party started with a nice black primed Chaplain, nice and straightforward. And the first workup is going to be through the airbrush. We're starting with some Reaper Bright Turquoise, and we're going to be adding some amounts of white into that, but at the moment I'm just looking to kind of hit some areas where I want light to live. As we switch into the white though, I'm going to try my first very brave and daring thing. I've mixed this paint too thick so that it spatters and forms like a dropletty kind of mist. And it's going to look very harsh at first, but as you see what I do with it now, we're going to take some Nuln oil and we're going to use this through the airbrush to dole down the entire miniature. That's going to bring that spackled effect back a little bit and just make it look more like a texture in the surface of the miniature. We'll then use those same turquoise and white mixtures to do some manual highlighting as well, just a bit of edge highlighting here and there, picking out areas that I want to accent, adding more and more white and shrinking those highlights down, as you often see me do. Okay, that's what we've got after that section. Looking pretty tidy, I think you'll agree. That spatter thing was, it was brave, it was risky, but I really like how it looks in the end. For our next workup now, we're going to be starting with some Mephiston red, which we'll shade down with Agrax Earthshade. Then we're going to start to build back up with Mephiston red again. Then we'll go into Evil Sunz Scarlet. And then we'll go into Wild Rider red. Finally, we'll finish off with Jokaero orange. The important thing to note here is that while I'm working through all of these highlights, I'm going to be deliberately trying to add textures. I'm going to be using these horizontal strokes as soon as I get past the Mephiston red, and I'm going to be building these up, making them thinner and thinner, bringing them closer and closer to the raised edges, so they're going to look like highlights, but they're also going to represent a cloth texture, sort of a thick kind of coloured hessian or something like that. I think it's really important when you do this to just build up the highlights, not just to run the texture with the brightest colour. Take a little bit of time with it and build it up, and it looks real nice. And that's what you'll end up with. Okay, another workup now, this time for all of the leather. We're going to start out with Mournfang brown. That Mournfang brown is going to take a shade of Agrax Earthshade. Just a nice liberal all over. And then we'll start to build highlights into it by mixing Jokaero orange into Mournfang brown. And as we build those highlights up, we're going to be wanting to look to place the brighter highlights more towards the top of the miniature, more towards the areas that are getting more light, so that we build that kind of idea of more intensity towards the brighter areas. You can see as we keep working that in, we are being very textural again. What you'll end up with on the other side of it is something that looks a bit like this. There's some very quick metallic workups now. Retributor armour for all of the gold trim and various gold accessories, and that's just going to get shaded with some Reikland Fleshshade. I'm showing you all of the gold areas here just because there's a lot of them and I don't want you to miss any like I nearly did. And then there's that shade going in. Very liberal on the highly textured areas, less liberal, more conservative on the less textured areas. Then we're going to grab some of that Vallejo dark aluminium and apply this to all of the areas I want silver. This guy is Deathwatch, so he has got a silver arm as well. We'll shade that down with Nuln oil. and that'll all be looking nice and crispy and super tasty by the time we're done with it. Again, being very liberal with the shade in the areas that are textural, being more conservative with the shade in the areas that aren't. That's what you're going to have once all your metallics are on and shaded. Don't forget that skull plate either, very important part. Okay, let's attack some parchments now. We're going to get with the Ionrach skin to start out with, my new favourite parchment colour it seems. That's going to take a initial shade of Seraphim Sepia. And then once all that Seraphim Sepia is dry and we've worked it all in, what we're actually going to do is grab some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to use it like a glaze. We're going to push it into areas where we want to accentuate the shadows. So you normally see me just do a simple 2-stage on parchments, but for this miniature, because he has so much parchment and because he's a chaplain, I just wanted it to look a bit more special. We'll highlight back up with some more Ionrach skin, maybe touching a bit of white into it as well if we need it. So that's what that's going to look like once you've got all the shades and highlights on. Now, we do need to obviously take that a step further by filling in all of that little scribbly text that belongs on it. And I'm going to do some red illuminated text on this as well. So you see me just with a very, very thin black paint here, starting to put that in just off the very last hair of my brush. Once you've got a bunch of that scribble in, you can see here I've included a few little pictures as well. There's a skull down there and there's an Aquila on one of them, and just, you know, make it up as you go along, but do stuff that's cool, do stuff that's interesting. Okay, we're going to start the flesh now, and this is where you're going to have to really slow yourself down. We're going to be painting this with scale 75 paints, starting off with brown leather and basic flesh, and then starting to build in some white as we get into the highlights. The really important part about this is we're going to be using kind of a semi-glaze, sort of between a glaze and a layer, and we really need to make sure that we build up our transitions to full opacity before we brighten up to the next stage. If you don't do that, you're going to get a very patchy and chalky look, and as you can see, as we're building this up, it's looking very, very nice and smooth, and that's just because we're being careful to make sure we achieve full opacity and then move on to the next part. Once we get to those really bright highlights, you can see it really starts to pop, has a bunch of depth, and looks really, really nice. Well, that's going to just about wrap up all of the painting, but I haven't given you that lazy Susan shot yet, so I'm going to shut up and let you take a look at our completed Chaplain. So what do you think, folks, of that interesting and different little take on the Indomitus Chaplain? I tried a couple of brave things there, some stuff that's a little bit different to what I'd normally do, because I wanted to give a bit of character to this miniature and, you know, make it feel special. I hope that you liked the risks that we took and that you think they paid off, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about them in the comments either way. If you liked this video, don't forget to click that thumbs up button, and if you want to subscribe to the channel and enable notifications, you'll be able to stay up to date on when I'm releasing new content. I do also have a Patreon, so if you want to support the channel and the creation of these videos, you can do that at the link below in the description, where you'll also find a link to all of my social medias if you want to find me there. So folks, I'll be back again very soon with another one, but until then, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.